Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. We can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you gotta get spotted. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun. Good morning, everybody. Hey, it is Wednesday, the 18th. Do we have any significant news today? I don't think we really have anything too big. I know that we have so we got building permits here at the bottom of the hour and mortgage foreclosures. It is Wednesday though. You always got to be aware on Wednesdays because a lot of money gets put to work on Wednesdays. So let's come to the charts. I've kind of changed my chart layup like I said I was going to. So we'll see how this works out. I come over and I look at these less and less every day. All right, so volume profile. So we got a pretty ugly move yesterday in the ES. They did bounce quite a bit though, and overnight has been pretty lackluster. I do think that there is some risk out there. I think that overnight the risk appetite has been better than it has been all week, at least in the overnight session. But I am a little concerned, especially if we are to get anywhere below like 44.20 or so. So you can see here, this was like an options freak out, right? A lot of options market makers on the daily basis losing money there on that. So now when we come over into the Treasury, things came off a little bit yesterday. So, there could still be some supply constraints. So I think that we've got to be on the lookout for these little spikes up, at least until Jackson Hole comes along. I continue to see statements from FOMC members stating that they are in favor of tapering starting September or before the end of the year. And I also continue to see statements from them stating that the asset purchases may be hurting more than helping in the current situation. So I do think that we are going to see a decline, a rise in yields, a decline in prices. But until that actually happens, until the taper actually happens, it may be difficult to get too far because these guys, they need the treasuries and the Fed bought them all. But we are getting some supply today, by the way. There is an auction. That's probably the biggest piece of news today. CL, been doing okay overnight. Gold. So big news over the evening was that Palantir bought a bunch of gold, but nobody cares. Look, it didn't move price at all. But they bought like some 50 million. Copper getting creamed past 2 days. That's concerning. Okay. Copper is a very good proxy for global growth. When we see copper going down like that, I'm concerned about global growth. Okay. And then we'll come over here to the currencies. We can see the dollar got quite a bit stronger yesterday. This trade does look a little crowded. So I think we might see that come back a little bit today. And we'll come over here and look at the Bitcoins. You can see still kind of hovering around this 4,400 area. The thing that I'm seeing in Bitcoin is that they continue to just be like, we're going to buy it. But it seems to me sketchy where those orders are coming from, because there is like a consumer strike. Like it is certainly not consumers that are buying this stuff, right? And I personally, I wish I could prove it. Well, we know that most of it is coming from Tether. Like we know Tether prints and then the price goes up. Whether all of that is always backed and everything is, who knows, but it sure is looking from the information that I've seen that it's like 2 hedge funds or something that are almost completely controlling the price. So, even though it continues to go up, I don't want anything to do with it. All right, so how are you guys doing? We're looking over here. I might want to buy the 10-year here, but I don't know. Okay, so we are going to get some news here. Building permits. That is going to certainly affect the treasury, so I don't want to take a trade now. Look, they are closing the gap here a little bit. Wonder if I put, a limit, or we'll try it if we try and buy. If we put a limit order on the inside, if they'll hit us or if they'll move away. Good morning, everybody. Just do it. No, not yet. We should be responsible. The thing is that with the treasuries, as much as I would like to trade it just to say that I have traded it, there's not necessarily any reason that I should think there will be tons of business at the moment, It is Wednesday, so that helps, but it's also summer and it's like the quietest part of the year. So, maybe wise for us to just kind of hold back a little bit. Let's see here. What else is going on while we're waiting here? China is to support the opening up of interbank and exchange bond markets. Ooh. That's a 4-tick spread on micros. Well, on some of these, it's really wide, right? On the 5-year, look at that on the 5-year. I really don't think that it should be that wide on the 5-year, but I can see that the number of cases in New Zealand has increased. That they think that there's probably up to 100 people that will be caught up in this latest breakout. Do you like UI in the ZB? Well, so I think that the ZB can be a great instrument to trade. It definitely has its own personality. I have to say, each of the treasuries behaves a little bit different. So when I go and I backtest strategies, I have noticed in particular, even though technical analysis strategies tend not to be very effective overall anyways, they always seem to work a little bit better on ZB than they do on ZN, for instance. ZN is so thick that it is very heavily dominated by order flow. Okay, so here's the number. Okay, so the housing starts number is a little bit under, but it's not a huge still. Markets don't seem to be reacting. Hold on, I get something stuck in my teeth here. ZV is a pushy girlfriend. now the I think you meant UB, not UI. The Ultra 30 year, that one's pretty dangerous. So I know that we had some people in here that were for a while scalping on the UB, and you can get those quick scalps, and it's maybe a better instrument for somebody that likes that fast action, but it's also a really big tick, right? So you can lose money very quickly on it. I personally, I think that most new traders are likely to do better on the 10-year. It's just a lot easier to watch the order flow and learn what's going on and kind of start to understand what you should be doing. Okay, so let's try putting one right here. Oh, wait, that's not what we wanted. Well, that's certainly not what you expected, huh? UV will take your head off, yeah. They're not gonna feel that. Oh, they did fill it. Okay. Market maker decided to be a bro and hit us, I guess. And then throw the squeeze on it. That's funny. UB is good when ZB volatility is low. Lots of new names today, by the way. Welcome. I had a TikTok video that did pretty well yesterday, so I'm betting that, yeah. Wouldn't be surprised if we catch a few people coming over from there. Well, there was a little flurry of activity there when the 10-year started to creep up towards the low. And now it's gotten really, really quiet. Do you trade NQ? No. NQ terrifies me, to be honest. I don't think you'll ever catch me trading NQ. Did you talk about ZB? What do you want me to say about it? Or no? It seems to respond to technical levels more than ZN does, but... Hello, AO, how are you? It's our newest dedicated regular. TikTok? No, but we've been talking about order flow on TikTok. That's what we've been doing over there. So, what did we talk about yesterday? Oh, yesterday I talked about that time that I was trading oil early on, and you could detect an institutional trader having his DOM stop out on him, and it led to a huge down move in oil. But I think today we're going to get into the little game on the inside. By the way, a little interesting here that it's 1500 by 1500 in the 10-year. So it seems like they're trying to... Well, okay, they ticked down. They ticked it down, but it looks like that the buyers are maybe trying to put up a little fight here. But we'll see what happens. They might get buried. The 5 looks to be the ringleader again. Do you trade Bitcoin? I don't trade. I mean, I watch cryptocurrencies very closely. I'm not super sold on getting involved in Bitcoin at the current time, just because I feel that the order flows are very manipulated, and I certainly don't recommend day trading Bitcoin unless you're going to do some sort of high frequency trading. So if you're going to write a robot and do market making and you think you have an edge there, then go for it. But trying to do like what I do in Bitcoin is probably not going to end well. And I'll add that there are certainly some risks going into the third quarter of this year, especially if the Fed tapers here, which I think 85% of market participants believe that the Fed will start to taper this year. And if that happens in the markets, that's going to be a significant risk for Bitcoin. Okay, because it's demand for cryptocurrencies. If everybody goes into a risk-off environment, they're not going to be interested in buying Bitcoin. Now, the caveat to that is that it doesn't, the order flow in Bitcoin does not appear to be natural to me. It looks to me like a bunch of tether prints out of nowhere. $1 billion just kind of like materializes and then comes to the exchange. And are they people really depositing $1 billion at a time into Bitcoin? I mean, Enron was like what, 64 billion, and this has gotten to like 45 billion. Like, it's a little questionable that they're actually getting that much money, right? So that's why I'm just kind of avoiding the crypto space right now. Plus, I just don't want to be associated with, man, the crypto influencers. And it's like, you push a coin and then you're getting paid to push a coin. And I want nothing to do with that, man. I want nothing to do with that. I saw the Bitcoin contracts margins for futures here are insane. Yeah. They really are. Especially if you want. I remember when the Bitcoin futures first went live, and I was like, I think this would be a really great place to short it, because there's not really a good way to short Bitcoin right now, and this is going to increase the amount of selling out there in Bitcoin. And I was right, like that was the high, but you had to have something like 5 times margin to go short than you did to go long. It's crazy. Yeah. Well, 45,000, that's just what Bitcoin is at right now, right? Just like futures, crypto is heavily over leveraged. Well, so I wouldn't say that futures are over leveraged. I would say most retail traders in futures are over leveraged. Yes, for sure. But most of the action that you see here in futures is actually just people hedging. But in crypto, if they print $1 billion in Tether, is it really just over leveraged? I don't know. I don't know if I would put it that way. Like in my mind, it's just fraud. When you say that it's backed 1-to-1 with dollars, and it's not. I'm pretty certain that at some point the law is going to catch up to that one. Nice TikTok videos. One video did okay, but I think that one video did okay because, like if 1 or 2 people come on to the TikTok videos and start commenting, they get so much more engagement. It's pretty crazy. Like that one, like we got the one comment on it. It involved a story. I've noticed that if you tell a story on TikTok, it tends to do a lot better. You get a lot more engagement telling stories. But that one, it was like 300 when I went to sleep, and when I woke up it was 3,000, and that's a lot more than many of the more recent videos, and it will probably continue to gain steam throughout the day, so I'm pretty happy about that. Oh, did you see that one? Last week I was doing the series on the problems with technical analysis. And there was this guy that he was so the reason that I got into it was because there's a couple of cryptocurrency influencers, and some of the most influential ones on TikTok were actually quite bearish on Bitcoin. And then, prices come back up to 4,500 and everybody's like, well, these guys were wrong. Right. And so there was a bunch of other guys coming in and like, well, I'm a technical analysis trader, and these guys, their technical analysis just isn't really very good. And there's one video I just thought, I wasn't picking on him specifically. It was just like his chart was so ridiculous to me. It was so ridiculous. So that's why I picked it. Because I don't want to be like bullying anybody or anything like that. So I very much tried to make it like not about him. But he took it that way. And so when he came back, he tried like insulting me, like my hair and things like that. And I was like, well, I think I picked an easy target because this guy was not very... I don't think that his response was very good, let's say. So I should probably go back and see if he posted any, because you can't like stitch a stitch. They kind of intentionally make it so that you can't, you can kind of have the last word on something. But maybe he made some other videos about it and I didn't see them. Maybe I should go back and look. But that whole thing was funny. And then, yeah, he was making fun of me for being bald. And I was like, you realize that being bald in the financial industry is like a good thing, right? All of the serious analysts are bald. Like, really? Kramer's bald. Like, who is a famous... Can you think of a famous analyst or reporter on Wall Street that has a full head of hair? I've seen $1 to $2 billion accounts doing DeFi yield farming. At some point, those guys were doing... Yeah, well, I think there's some issues with the DeFi thing too, but again, I just kind of stay away from it. I should use this camera instead of the TikTok one. Well, it would be nice to record on my phone, but if I record on my phone, to record on my camera, but if I record on my camera, then there's some other things that I end up having to do. And so it's a little bit harder to put a video together. So I just use my phone. It seems to work okay. I think if we continue to do well on TikTok, I think that I will get another light. So I have this Elgato light right here, which is just the panel one. It's a good soft light. And then I have this ring light from Sunpack, I think. And I don't think it's very good. Like, the lighting that it gives you, the Sunpack one, is a little off. So I don't use that one for the TikTok videos. I just end up taking the Elgato one off and moving it. So I'm thinking that maybe what I should do is I should just buy an Elgato ring light and just, I'll keep this ring light over here and I'll have that one over there, and then I don't have to move it around. What phone am I using? I'm using a Galaxy S9, 10, what is it? I don't remember what version it is. I have to take the case off to even see. 9 Plus. So this is the one where it has kind of like the beveled screen on the edge, which I kind of thought was kind of useless, but... Can you give me MA? What do you mean by that? A moving average? You want a moving average? 10-minute moving average appears to be the most useful moving average on a short-term chart. But whole moving averages are better because they give you a faster signal. And the reason that a moving average has any use at all is because it helps you catch the beginning of a trend. People think that, I use the moving average, that will keep me in line with the trend. No. Like saying I buy above it or buy below it, and that will make me more likely to not go against the trend. That doesn't work that way. That's probably not what Dave was asking. Can you give me a couple of ideas of what moves the bond market? Okay, so that's a good question. So what moves the bond market is people wanting to buy bonds. I know that that's a really not the answer that you were looking for, but that's the basis of where we want to go. So what would cause people to want to buy bonds? Yeah. Well, so one thing that moves bonds is the auctions, right? So today we have an auction that's going to affect the bond market significantly. It could be bad. On some of these auction days, we've had pretty good down moves in the treasuries. Yeah. But so it's like any other thing. Like, think about gold. If you were trying to value gold, you would be thinking, okay, how many people want to buy gold and how much gold is coming onto the market? Okay, so the same thing in treasuries. There is a certain amount that the treasury auctions out to the market every month. Today we're getting a 20-year auction. Okay. Then there is the people that need to buy it. Now, some people have to buy it, right? Like certain funds, like that's what they do. Their whole thing is, I have to have a certain number of stocks and a certain number of bonds, and that is like our strategy, right? Some people own bonds, like their insurance companies or whatever, it's a mix, this sort of things, right? So if we were trying to predict future order flows, one of the big things that we want to look for in the bonds is the overall picture of that kind of activity. If I can find anything that suggests that large funds are going to be moving bonds in some sort of a rebalancing or something, that's something that I really, really want to pay attention to, right? If what was I going to say next? Another thing that really moves bonds that a lot of retail traders don't. This is something that I, for the longest time, didn't know about. But it's not just the government that creates supply. You also need to look at competing assets. So the competing assets for treasuries is like corporate bonds, right? So if Amazon or Apple is coming out and selling a ton of bonds, that has an impact on our markets. And usually what happens is the banks that are, doing that issuance will come in and sell the treasury to create a rate lock so that if the interest rate changes, they don't lose out money on it. So that happened like last week, 2 weeks ago. There's this really, really strong move down in the treasuries. And we were really, really confused and we couldn't figure out, why would it move like that? And it turns out that Amazon had come out and done a huge issuance. And that one's a difficult one because it's hard for retail traders to get information like that, right? Pausu says resting orders and market orders move the market. Well, that's true. Or we can just say orders move the market. Yes, that is true. But why do the orders get placed? Why do the orders get placed? That's the question. Who is the best trader in bonds and markets? I mean, it seems to me that in the bonds, that they are very much dominated by one or two, well, maybe not one or two, but a small handful of large algorithmic traders, I think, are the bulk of the activity. That seems to me. Anyways, these are the sorts of things that, I can't, I don't want to share with you every little teeny thing that I think about when it comes to the bonds. But, that kind of give you a base for, looking around and trying to find things that might be predictive of future flows. What about employment numbers? That certainly does move bonds. Especially now, if the September number was really, really bad, I mean, it couldn't just be like kind of in line with expectations, but not good. But if it was really bad, then you could probably see a pretty strong move in the bonds. Yeah, because this whole taper thing, everybody's watching it for the taper. And a lot of these FOMC guys are saying if the September jobs number is good like last month's number, then we're free to taper. But if it's really bad, that might push that back, and it could have a really dramatic effect on the bonds, couldn't it? How about NQ? Is it robot? Oh, absolutely. I don't really watch the DOM over there, but I mean, when we look at it, those orders that are moving up and down, those aren't people. I mean, look, it's like the same number of orders at every step away. So there's definitely some market making algorithms are the bulk of the liquidity there. Well, I mean, market making algorithms are the bulk of the liquidity everywhere, but I just don't see how you would be, like in the 10-year, when the 10-year is moving, you can see me do stuff where I'll place an order, take place an order, take a tick, and I can, do a bunch of orders and manage things around very quickly in the 10-year. But that's because the 10-year is slow. If I tried doing something like that in NQ, you'd probably just get obliterated. I'm hearing warnings of another lockdown, shutdown. Bo was the latest to talk about that. Well, they are doing shutdowns in Australia and New Zealand. And in Europe, they're trying to do the whole vaccine passport thing, although it doesn't sound like it's going very well. But in the United States, I think it's very unlikely that you will see further shutdowns. So when looking at the trajectory of the Delta variant, what I'm seeing is that probably in some of the worst areas, they're peaking right now, and that the overall Delta wave is likely to peak September 1st, the beginning of the month. So I don't think that in the United States that the political leaders can afford to shut down again. So it's certainly not a nationwide shutdown. I think that if there was a nationwide shutdown, that would like be the end of the Democrat Party. Just my kind of feel. I have to say though, it's really weird to me to see the attitude of like the Australians and the New Zealanders on all this stuff. Like they're terrified about it. They're saying, somebody asked this guy on TikTok, is it like the flu? And he's like, well, it's not like the flu. It's way, way worse than that. And I was like, well, I mean, from the perspective of dealing with public health, it's not the flu because it has a much higher hospitalization rate, right? But in terms of like you, a regular healthy adult, catches it, yeah, it's almost exactly like the flu. It was like the mildest cold of my life. I had a slight fever for 2 days, and that was it when I had COVID. So, but when you don't try and tell the guys in Australia that, they're like, yeah, but you can get blood clots from it and all these other things. I'm like, okay, these are like really niche interactions that aren't well studied and don't appear to be very common. And that's like, you're basing your whole COVID strategy off of that. Come on, guys. You are irrationally afraid of this thing. It's irrational. It goes really well in Denmark. No restrictions, says Tommy. Good. Well, I would hope, and the last thing that we need right now is another full-on shutdown, right? That would just be so devastating to the world economy. Can you imagine if we had another shutdown on the same scale or worse than the previous shutdown? And, especially with it taking, and then it caught on full in China. Whew. You can't reason with the fear is virtue crowd. Yeah. Do you think that in their minds that they really realize that they're treating fear like a virtue, that like the more scared of it you are, the more virtue? I don't know, man. Some of my family members lost volume from their lungs permanently because of it. Yeah, I would like to read more about that. There are certainly long-lasting effects from it. No question about it. I just haven't had the same kind of energy and drive since I caught it. But like colds can do that, and those effects go away after time. A lot of it is just that your immune system reacts to it so strongly, and then it continues to be like on edge for a long time. And that's a lot of inflammation and stuff in your system. I was watching this thing the other day where this guy was saying, exercise tends not to be very effective on its own at creating weight loss because everybody thinks that it's going to change your metabolism, but just working out on its own doesn't actually change your metabolism. If you build muscle over a long period of time, I think that should change your metabolism, but your body tries very, very hard to maintain a certain level of metabolism. And what they find is that if you take away some of that energy through working out, that it just takes it from other things. And one of the things that they think that it takes it from is inflammation, interestingly enough. So if you sit around all day, then your body puts more effort into inflammation, and that causes all sorts of problems. This will have generational impacts? I think so. Although I believe, personally, I think this is probably a crazy prediction, but I believe that when our grandchildren come and ask us questions about COVID, that they're going to think we were all crazy. I really do. There are a lot of policies being implemented by public policy holders that in the long run are going to be proven to be extremely short-sighted and poor decisions. And I guess we'll see which side those end up falling on. But personally, I think, here's the thing, in New Zealand in particular, one case, of course, now I think that they say they have 3 confirmed cases and they think that there's 100 people that are affected. You shut down the whole country. Okay. For 3 days. What? 3 days? The incubation of it is 2 weeks. So if this is to there was an outbreak, we need to completely kill that outbreak. 3 days isn't going to do anything. You know what 3 days is? 3 days is so that the government can say that we're doing something without totally tanking the economy. That's what 3 days is. You're underestimating the pandemic. Well, certainly underestimated it before, didn't we? Didn't I? I didn't think that it was going to become as big of a deal as it did. I think that the lockdowns were much longer lasting. I thought 2 weeks to stop the spread and then people will open up. Sure. But then you had places in California that were shut down the whole time. One of the things that was funny when I was reading these conversations amongst the Australians is they were like, well, you guys in the US, you don't understand because we haven't had a pandemic, and we're all just fine over here. And I'm like, no. I had a lockdown for the 2 weeks when Donald Trump implemented it. And since then, in my state, we've been completely open. Whereas you guys are going into lockdown every other week. How can you say that it's better? I don't know, man. The issue is that at some point, and it's happening in the United States, at some point, you kind of have to realize that some of the beliefs that people had about how to deal with the virus were unrealistic, right? So the thing that I think really, you don't see it directly, certainly not in the news, but I think it was a real eye-opener, and it's the thing that's really starting to change people's perceptions in the United States, was when the CDC came out and said that people that have the vaccine still get a viral load and transmit it, right? So what does that mean? That means that this whole thing of shut everything down until we have a vaccine, and then once we have a vaccine, we get herd immunity and we're safe. It was never going to happen. It was never going to happen because the vaccine doesn't prevent that spread. And people still get sick on the vaccine, apparently. Although I think we need some more data on that. So there's this whole thing about which vaccine is which vaccine is most effective and all that. Which we already knew. Oh, I didn't know. That people still transmitted it? I don't think we really knew until the CDC said that. Oh my. What would my phone be beeping on me? Oh, I get some emails. What we got? For the first time since the vaccine arrived in my local grocery store, the store has run out of vaccines. Oh, okay. Let's see here. The CDC had to cave and make the public announcement because of the research. Yes, I think you're right. I don't remember if I recall reading that before the CDC said it or not. It's a SARS virus. You cannot vaccinate against it and make it go away. We knew flu shots didn't eliminate the flu. Yeah, anyone who paid attention before, they were told to know that the COVID vaccine would function the same way. If you're generally convinced the SARS virus with animal reservoirs was going to be eliminated by a vaccine, you're naive. Well, I thought that you would catch it, that your immune system would catch it so quickly that you would never develop symptoms and thus not spread it. I did think that. I mean, that's the way the vaccines are typically supposed to work. But I suppose we know, like, the flu, helps you not get sick from it, but it doesn't completely prevent it. So, but maybe I think you could say that we always knew a vaccine was not 100% efficient, right? We know that it's like 95% of cases or whatever their stats from before when they were doing the tests were, that it was like 95%, right? So that alone tells you, yeah, some people are going to catch it and spread it. And I suppose that it's the degree to which they spread it. And what we're finding is that the degree to which they spread it is still so much that you have a problem, right? They had a problem in Israel, even though they had like 96% vaccinated or something. Like, everybody was vaccinated in Israel, right? According to vaccinologists, a vaccine campaign will drive the appearance of new variants. Yeah. But Uzi says, acknowledging the inevitable. The inevitable is that COVID will be with us for the rest of mankind, and that if you are a young adult, that there is a pretty high chance that you will catch it at some point in your lifetime, and that there will probably continue to be booster shots every year dealing with new variants. Yeah. So as such, the strategy of shut down until you have a vaccine, vaccinate everybody, and then we're finally safe because we crushed the virus is delusional, pure delusion, 100%. You mean like the flu? Yeah, it'll be like the flu, exactly. Most are immune, so catching it is only part of the story. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, and that's why I'm saying, like, I focus on New Zealand and Australia in particular, because the thing that bothers me, they say follow the science, etc., etc., etc. Okay, but what these countries are doing is not following the science. They're not doing what the science says. They're not doing what the World Health Organization says. They're not doing what the U.S. CDC says. Right, they're going off on their own thing, and the Australians and the New Zealanders think that it is based on the science, but it's not. It's 100% political. It's 100% political. Nasdaq Trader says, I don't think it has anything to do with the efficacy of the vaccine, but the origin of the mutation rates and danger of the new variants. Well, how much new variants comes out was I think that's a separate issue. I think that both of those are things that could make crushing the virus unrealistic, though. Yeah. This is what happens when everyone involved in discourse focuses more on being a big brain than the uncommon sense stuff we already knew. Well, I don't know if everything that Dr. Malone is saying is correct and within his area of expertise. He was one guy that was involved in that. Have you? Well, so I've already caught it. I'm sure that at some point I will take the vaccine, but at the moment, no. I had a thought about that the other day. I can't remember what it was. I don't know. But like the thing is you're supposed to get like two stuck twice with it, and then booster shot later is like oh, I know what I was saying. So one of the things is there was like that report out that the Pfizer vaccine was not as effective as the Moderna vaccine, and Fauci was like really trying to put cold water on that report because they were saying it wasn't peer reviewed yet and stuff. Okay, fine. Once the CDC tells me which vaccine is more effective, then maybe I'll think about getting it. Because the last thing that I want to do is go and get a vaccine and then it's not very effective. But everything that I understand about it, like this is the thing that's crazy, is it really comes down to the law of big numbers, I think, in most of these cases, right? Like every piece of data that I've seen says that if you catch COVID, that you don't catch it again. Everything that I've seen says that if you get vaccinated, you don't catch COVID. But then we're still having this Delta variant wave anyways. So like, how is that? One of those studies are wrong, or it's just that even with like 99% of people don't catch it again, that still enough people catch it that it's still a problem. Yeah, knowing that that we're gonna live with this forever, how much of your life are you willing to give to tyrants over to it? Well, here's the problem as I see it. I think that a lot of people, millennials in particular, don't really have lives to give up. I honestly, like, remember when this all started and there was all of those viral videos of people going around the waste bins in their neighborhood and it was just all full of alcohol? Everybody was, tons and tons of hard liquor. Yeah. There's a lot of people that would be more than happy to just stay in their house for the rest of their lives, apparently. People are really going to spend the rest of their lives combing up. Well, I don't think that most people actually look at it. I think it's just us. Yeah. Because I continually run into people that seem to be completely clueless about. I mean, I don't know every piece of data about this thing, right? And I've certainly kind of lost interest in it over time. But then there's some, like one of the ones that really drove me crazy was this guy that was an Australian on TikTok. He was saying, well, here's the problem is that, like, if you don't do anything and then 1% of the population dies, then that's like equivalent to a Holocaust. And I'm like, what world are you living in where you think that 1% of people dying is a realistic scenario for COVID? Like, holy crap. Do you realize that the death rate for it is like 0.2% or something? Like, come on. Let's see here. You got a cold 2 years ago from a coronavirus that immunity works against COVID-1984. So the research says anyways. Oh, this is what I want to read. They are saying that Pfizer gave the second shot too soon and didn't give time for your body to prime. Oh. Yeah, the goalpost move, it is frustrating. That's the thing that bothers me the most, really, about the COVID thing, was they came in and they said, all of the experts say we need to flatten the curve. And then all of a sudden, flatten the curve turned into crush the virus. I was like, no, I didn't sign up for that. There's a certain point at which it's like, I'm only willing to give up so much. And you ask me to give up more, then just let them die. It's not worth it. You've got to have your line. Some people seem to think that you're going to do absolutely everything that save any life. This is just not realistic, guys. Why get a vaccine if you've already had the natural to build antibodies against everything? I've heard is that the vaccines do nothing extra or less effective than natural immunity. Anyways, well, interestingly enough, we talked about this on Monday, but I was seeing some stuff on TikTok and so forth that was like saying, oh yeah, actually, there's less cases of Delta among people that had already caught it than among people that had the vaccine, or something to that effect. So I'm like, okay, is that really actually true? So I started searching around for it. And if you search for it on Google, everything will redirect you to a recent CDC study. The recent CDC study says that people that got the vaccine have more antibodies, essentially. So their reading from that study is that the vaccine is more effective immunity. But, it's probably more complicated than that, because that's not an actual study of the actual effects. Like, that's still theoretical that, okay, you have more antibodies, that should result in more immunity, but does it actually? That's still something that you would have to test through the data, and probably we would need more data to do, right? And the thing is that when you have the vaccine, your body develops antibodies against the spike protein specifically, whereas there are other parts of the virus that you will develop antibodies to through natural immunity. So some people are arguing that because of that, you'd be more resistant to future strains, because if there's a mutation in the spike protein, you would still catch the other parts of the virus and still kill it. That's their argument. But now I'm going beyond what the CDC says, and that's like not allowed, right? But everything that I've seen has said that natural immunity is pretty dang good, and that if you have natural immunity and you get the virus, that your immunity is even better. So I don't know. But I'm kind of like, okay, but we don't even know which vaccine is the best one to get. Like, until I can be certain which vaccine is the best vaccine, why should I get it? That's kind of where I'm at right now. So I'm not like opposed to getting vaccinated. Kulud says that's not true. Well, I wasn't trying to say that it was true. That was just the information that I had read. So you have to go and look at well, I'm not sure what he was saying was not true. You should say what specifically is not true, so we know what you're talking about. Yeah. Well, while we've been yapping about this, the E-mini is taking a little bit of a dive. Johnson has the worst side effects. That yeah. So I'm pretty sure that I don't want the Johnson & Johnson one. I believe that right now it's Moderna seems to be in the lead. Yeah. But Fauci disputes it, so I don't know. Kind of makes me wonder. Seems to me like he has some friends in the vaccine industry and that he wants to make sure that when he's saying something, I have to be absolutely sure, because otherwise I don't want to say something that will hurt their profits and then be wrong. You said all sorts of other shit that wasn't true. Gosh, good grief. Sinopharm is a traditional vector. Oh, really? I told you guys the S&P down. As I think that we're likely to see some. I'm not gonna say that we're gonna have like an outright crash in the ES, but I really think that the consumer sentiment and retail sales being poor is a very bad omen for the markets. Yeah. I don't know though. I feel like the S&P, like my outlook right now, as I'm thinking because of consumer sentiment and everything, that the S&P is likely to struggle, but not like outright fall apart, which is what we've been seeing so far this week. Next week, when Gamma expires, then we become much more vulnerable. Go ahead and read it. I'm right. All right. I would wager that pre-COVID, you could have moved a whole lot more flu shot units with real-time flu illness and death data by location. You could easily made billions more people terrified. I like how everyone with internet access thinks he knows better than Fauci. Well, I don't think that I know better than Fauci, but I do know that he's been wrong and or lied about specific things. He has. So how am I supposed to know which things he's being truthful about and which things he's not? Like this is the problem with Fauci. It's not that he is not an expert and that he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's that he is a career politician of sorts. And he 100% has tried to play the political games with us. Sorry, but he has. He's said many ridiculous things. And I guess the bigger issue is that particularly when we're talking about the edge of our knowledge, the experts don't necessarily know any more about it than anybody else. This is not true, though. He changes his opinion when new info comes out. Well, I'm not talking about like the masks. I'm saying there was specific times where he has admitted to us that he lied. Right? He straight up was telling us things about the spread, and he said, "Oh, I did that because I wanted people to get vaccinated or whatever." But even though it wasn't true, like he straight up said that. So that's where once it came to that point, that's when a lot of people were like, "Oh, this guy's not trustworthy." Contradicts himself left. He does contradict himself. Like the mask thing is a different issue. I totally get the mask thing, because I remember watching that in real time, people saying, well, actually there's some reason to think that the masks might be effective, and then they came out and they said, well, okay, like we're going to go along with it, because the thing is that there's no evidence that shows that in forcing a mask mandate slows the spread at all. The every piece of data that I've seen on this suggests that it doesn't do anything, even though it certainly does reduce the amount of viral load that's in the air, because you don't get the air droplets. Is true. Like, it's a good theory that it would work, but it just doesn't appear in practice to actually work. But But I saw when they were doing that, and they're saying, well, this might help, and okay, so we'll make a policy and we'll go along with it. And then all of a sudden it turned from this is something that might help to like, this is the law and nobody can question it. It was like really startling to me. Next time you're in an operation table, ask doctors, and well, that's a little different because you're open. But he did. The thing was, the advice from the CDC was that masks don't work. So that's what he said. And then the international community was kind of slowly coming around to the idea that maybe masks could help. So then he changed his opinion. That's 100%. And like the thing is I was making masks and selling them to people before he endorsed it. Okay. So I understand how that worked. Okay. The problem is that since that time, there have been instances where he admitted that he kind of fibbed a little bit to affect public perceptions. And he has admitted many times that he says things to impact public perceptions. And that is why I say that I just don't think he's trustworthy, particularly when we're talking about something where it's like, we're not really sure. Like, is the vaccine more effective than natural immunity? There's some, you get more antibodies, but does that actually result in more effective immunity and more effective immunity against future variants? We don't have enough data to know that. I don't think that we have enough data to know that. And if Fauci comes out on TV and says that, I'm wrong, I don't believe him. Because I know that he says things to affect public perceptions, and that his primary goal is to get as many people vaccinated as possible. And so he's going to lie about what the natural immunity is. He's going to say that we know for sure that it's not very effective when we have enough data to say that. And I can just look at that one specific thing where I know. And I know that he's done that on other things in the past, right? So this is kind of the problem that he's played. I really think that he has been the role that he has played, he's been ineffective at that role. Like, maybe he's effective at being the bureaucrat in charge of that agency, but in terms of being the person that interfaces with the public, I don't think he's been very good, because a lot of people don't trust him anymore because he did lie to us. The people who say that masks are no effective are the people who say they can't breathe when they put the mask on. Well, you know what? I certainly don't like wearing the mask. They're starting to require masks at church again. I'm not going to church. I'm going to watch it on TV because I can't stand that thing. It drives me nuts. I cannot do anything but think about how much I hate that mask on my face. It has nothing to do with like I can't breathe or I'm getting too much carbon, whatever. It's just uncomfortable. Okay. You say it there's a theory that it helps. Okay, but then like, where's the data? Because every time they try and do a study and they say, okay, this area had a mask mandate and this area didn't, and how much did the virus spread between them? And it shows there's no difference. This isn't the first time scientists have wondered if masks present disease. Yeah, really, you're totally right, Caleb. Like, it's really something that there's been back and forth on. I don't think that I'm going to say that like it's been disproven that they help, because I think that there's still a really compelling theoretical argument for why they should help. I don't follow U.S. politics. I know most EU countries ask experts and they say masks help. Well, Well, yeah, there you go. The N95 mask. It's funny at the beginning, everybody was talking about N95 masks, and then they said, no, just make one out of cloth. Make sure you have 2 sheets of cloth and you're fine. And then everybody dropped that one. Even though, like, he's right, that in order to really prevent particles that small, you would really need an N95 mask if it's aerosolized. Well, and that's another thing, is that they were not honest with us about it being aerosolized. Would you agree with that? Like, it was obvious to me from day one that this thing was airborne, and that it wasn't just in water droplets, that the thing could become straight up airborne and that you could catch it from that. And there's all these stories of people, oh, I've been locked down, I haven't left my apartment for 3 weeks and I still caught COVID. Okay? Yeah, because it's airborne. And then it took them months and months and months for them to admit that, oh, actually, we do believe that it is airborne now. Okay, yeah. That's just like, there's so many little, the thing is that at the time, I guess in the long run of things, a lot of the things that Fauci was not honest with probably didn't matter in the end. Because I can't remember what the specific one was where he admitted that they lied. But I don't think that it was something that was really all that. It was something that at the time probably seemed important, but in the larger scheme of things probably wasn't. I don't buy into this like there's a conspiracy to condition everybody to accept. I don't believe that. I continue to say, look at systems. There are systems in place that kind of lead to certain things tending to happen. And there doesn't need to be any coordination or conspiracy to it at all. It just kind of ends up happening that way because the system encourages it. In this particular case, because of the way that people in society is, like, politicians have too much to gain from scaring you about it. Well, the thing is that you say you do you. If there's something that you can present a piece of research that contradicts something that I said, then present it. Right? This is why any kind of appeal to authority argument ultimately falls on its face, and why it's considered a logical fallacy. Because you shouldn't have to appeal to authority to prove your argument. You should be able to use the resources that authority has and disprove the argument. Show the research, right? And this is why there's a problem, because Fauci will say something and then we'll say, okay, but look, here's the empirical evidence that doesn't necessarily match that. First little impulse there in the E-mini was a sell, but there's pretty good pushback. It actually looks fairly mixed, and the cumulative delta so far is actually positive in the E-mini, so we'll see what happens. It looks like they are trying to buy the dip. Like, there have been at least 3 studies that I have read. I wouldn't say that like I scanned them super deep and everything like that, but there are 3 studies that I've skimmed over and that tried to determine if there was an appreciable difference in transmission in areas where masks were required and areas where masks were not required. And all 3 studies, they showed that it was either inconclusive or had no effect. That's the science. I think they have a really good basis for why it might work, but so far that has not proven out in the actual data. Okay, so there's the E-mini back above the open now. Treasuries did seem to react to that beginning bearishness, though. Oops. Look at that. Well, the last pivot was up at 36.75, so we'll see what they... Not that it matters whether or not they get it, but it's just kind of like the next benchmark we can watch. John Hopkins said hospital error is the third leading cause of death in the U.S.? Really? Now that's really interesting, my friend. So if they can get over 36 or so, that I think that would be a pretty positive development. But and so far the deltas in the ES look really positive. You'll shuffle and shuffle for nuance and context? Well, I mean, nuance and context are very good things to look at. But you're trying to, I think you're trying to make an empirical claim, right? The empirical claim is mask mandates reduce the spread of coronavirus 19, right? Now, when you look at the science, you can see COVID is primarily spread by, what do they call them? Water droplets. And the masks stop the water droplets from being spread, or at least reduce them from being spread. Ergo, theoretically, a mask mandate should reduce the spread of COVID-19. But when we do studies and we try and look at areas that had mask mandates and didn't, and look at what the spread was, the results don't bear that out. Not yet. Perhaps at some point they will go through and they will, be able to account for different factors that factor the spread so that you can compare different areas more effectively and be able to show that the mask mandates did reduce the spread. Maybe that'll happen in the future, right? And then that's where we're at on that one. And that's just the empirical evidence. That's all there is to say about it, right? And you can't say that anything that I said right there was inaccurate. Unless you're going to present another study that shows differently. Okay, so they got a pretty good buy, but now they're pushing back down again. We'll see. Gosh, did I put that in there again? That's so funny. Okay, good. But we're good. Other than that, we're good. Was a thing with that video I'm making. Yeah, so what you're saying there, Uzi, wouldn't be sound science. Because you could say mask mandates help, but then the next question would be, how much do they help? Right? It could be that they do help, but the difference that they make is so infinitesimally small as to almost make it not worth it, right? And I suspect that probably is the case, like that the mask mandates, like where the mask mandate helps is that it makes people feel like that they're doing something. Yeah. Because otherwise, like, the thing is if you get people scared about something and there's nothing they can do about it, then like it eventually they stop caring, right? But if you can wear a mask and you can police other people and make sure that they're wearing their masks, all of a sudden it's a very different issue, right? And now all of a sudden you have this cultural issue about whether or not you wear the mask. Which, if we say that we're going to wear the masks, I followed the local. I'm always going to follow the policy in my local area on those sorts of things. So if there's a mandate, you have to wear a mask, you go out in public, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to like it because I hate wearing it, but I follow the direction. Well, but conditioning for, like, when you say it's conditioning, the issue that I take with you saying that is that when you say conditioning, that implies that there is a secret cabal of globalists at the global level that got together in a meeting and said, okay, guys, so we need to implement our new world order. How can we do that? Well, what we need to do is we need to condition them to do absolutely everything that we say. Well, how can we do that? I know. We should get them to wear masks. If they wear masks, then that will change their whole mindset and will make it easier for us to implement the world order in the future. That's what you're saying, right? When you're saying it's conditioning, is that the conditioning implies an intentional, you're making an intentional decision to try and affect people's perceptions or behavior in a way that is favorable to you in the future. And that's not what's going on with mask mandates. What's going on with the mask mandates is you got a president or a policy holder sitting there saying, well, like, people are really scared. We need to give them something to do to make, so that we can, everything that we can do to try and stop the spread. Well, it may be possible that if they wear masks, that might help reduce the spread. Okay, good. Let's do that. And the politician does that because then it makes it look like he's doing something. And that's why it happens. That's why I think it happens. And then you could go down and follow, and I don't know if that's going to be the case with the masks or not, but, because there's a political incentive to push the policy, you end up getting a policy that gets pushed, even though in the future it may turn out that it was not effective at all. You don't need a smoky coordinate. Okay, but I don't think that anybody that was involved in mask making policy ever sat and thought masks would be good because it will condition people for this or that. I don't think that ever happened. Their only thought was, this will help me politically. Because I'm doing something. I'm helping. What's this? Oh, that's weird. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you guys. Remember yesterday when I was like, no, the Ninja Trader did update the instrument definitions for the new micro treasuries, but they're wrong, and it should be the size should be 1,000, so that's $1 per tick. And then they were like arguing with me about it in the email, but they admitted that I was right and changed it. So, you're welcome. Oh, the Taliban has vowed to honor women's rights? Oh, okay. Well, so this is interesting. The Yemeni is pushing. There's the 36 that I was saying could be a good level. Treasure is not backing off yet, though. they're still slightly elevated. I would say it's pretty easy. Meh. Pretty wishy-washy right here in the treasury, so I don't know if them sitting at 0.6 it means anything. And the dollar, it's within its range. So I do see oil took a little bit of a hit there. What else? Any other assets really moving? OHG. Which is copper. Do I not have an intraday chart of copper? Copper is topping the activity chart at the moment. Copper followed by the indexes. There's a lot of activity in the index today. Interestingly enough, it's been a pretty choppy and open, but I would say positive. I'd say over 36 is positive, so. Yeah, ZB is still sitting in the first 5-minute range of the RTH session. Actually, is it, let's see here. Oh yeah, because they had that little dip down. I don't know. I mean, it looks like they're pushing down. Or sorry, it looks like they're pushing up. It looks like they might make a run for the highs. We'll see if they go for it. The established structures of power are fundamentally set up to condition people to conformity. I really don't think that conditioning people to wear masks or not really has a significant. Sorry, I just don't see it. But what I would say is that people try and enforce conformity amongst each other. That's an pretty ingrained natural human behavior to try and force conformity. Tinfoil hats and microchip. Did you see this thing where the Department of Defense said that they had a chip that could detect if you had COVID? I was like, what? That's one of those things that is like, if you were in the Department of Defense in that science division, I would think that when you would think and say, hey, I bet you we could design a microchip that would detect COVID, you would immediately say, you know what, that's probably not a good idea. Let's not do that. Just because it would look bad, you know? Yeah, that was Uzi's right. That was a straw man argument. Nobody has said that there are microchips in vaccines. That's absolutely ridiculous. Now, tinfoil hats, on the other hand, I am 100% in favor of tinfoil hats because there are still cases of Havana syndrome out there, and many believe that it is being caused by a microwave device run by the Russians. And theoretically, a tinfoil hat could potentially protect you from the effects of Havana syndrome. So I'm still all in on tinfoil hats. Ayo says, wow, that's scary. Uzi probably felt attacked for sure. I think that is just I think that myself and Uzi are tired of is when we're trying to have a real serious intellectual empirical discussion about how public policy should be run, how public officials should deal with the pandemic, how guys like Fauci should communicate with the public, and what the actual science is of COVID-19 so that we can determine what the most effective policy is out there. And when anybody says something that suggests that maybe the current policy is not completely in line with the science and is not the most effective public policy, then everybody turns around and says, oh, you're an anti-vaxxer, you don't believe in the science, you think that the government is putting blah blah. No, I try and read research, and I pride myself on trying to base decisions on research and make the most effective decision that I can. And it's really annoying that, like, we can't have this discussion. Like, that the public is, like, trying to clamp down on that discussion. It's like they don't want you to do your own research. They just want you to do what you're told. And that's never going to be me. That's never going to be me. I'm always going to look at the research and say, okay, well, why are they saying this? Is that really true? What might be the best way to go about this? Is it a conspiracy channel or a money maker? Today we really have gotten off onto a discussion that really doesn't have much of an effect on markets. I mean, if this was like 6 months ago, then maybe when we were having this discussion, then it was a little bit more worthwhile. But you're right. Well, I don't really have anything else to talk about today. So I'm sorry. Oh gosh, Uzi. He says, "Oh yeah, that's never going to be you, but I'm the idiot for being the same way." Yeah. Okay, so what's live action saying here? If you can review your ladders in depth on the bid loading and the pullbacks with the algos is a useful thing to recognize. So you know what is something that I find a little frustrating in the micros right now? Well, actually, it's changed. So one thing I haven't pointed out that I probably should to you guys is that there's about 1,000 contracts on the inside now in the 10-year. Kind of interesting. By the way, E-mini topped out there pretty hard. They're coming back. Let's see what they do. Treasuries is still look a little concerned. But yeah, it was started out at like 200. Now it's 1,000. But the thing that I find frustrating is that it will tick up and down, and all of those orders just move, right? And that's it. So there's like nothing to really read over here other than what the best bid and ask is. At least that's what it seems like to me. There is still kind of these, like, for instance, I find it curious that there's 186 on the offer at 274. I don't know what the correct way to read this would be, but 27 and 4/10. But then there was the next price up. There was nothing. Yeah, that's the market depth. These bottom ones are the micros. These bottom ones are the micros. You still can't get the micros to... Well, here, let me show you what you got to do now, Uzi. If you go to your control center and you go Tools, Database Management, and then here, Update Instrument Lists, you expand that and click Update, and that should update you to the correct settings. Oh, there you go. World Health Organization Chief Scientist Swaminathan says data does not indicate that COVID-19 booster shots are needed. Well, that's not what I would expect him to say. Anyways, once you do that, then you should be able to pull it up correctly. What's this? Strong words from the Dutch Central Bank on Binance. It says the group and its affiliated operators are illegally offering services for the exchange between virtual and fiduciary currencies, and it is illegally offering custodian wallets. Oh. It's a little alarming to me that Binance, of all people, is the exchange that's been getting hit by regulators and stuff. I mean, I guess that's the one that we should expect that it would be, but like they're the largest too. So What's Big saying? Whisper is, but given the amount of intermeeting Fed speak we get these days, FOMC minutes are becoming increasingly irrelevant. Gives the Fed watching purists something to get frothy over, though, I guess. Yes. Well, it's been very interesting. You know what I think has been happening here in the Federal Reserve? Because there's this whole thing about whether there will be a taper, right? Well, couple of guys last week said like, yeah, we think that there could be a taper, or like we were seeing in media suggestions that like a taper was coming, right? And like in chat, there's some people, sometimes I think they have some questionable theories, but they were saying, no, I don't think the Fed is actually going to taper. I think they're going to keep the money easy forever. And so I saw that kind of sentiment out on the market. I think that the majority of professionals still believe that the taper was coming, but I could be wrong. And it was almost like the Fed saw that and was like, oh, no, like we got to make it clear, like the taper is coming. And so now almost every FOMC member has said something about it. And basically what they have said is, we think that we're likely going to be able to taper in September. It's kind of interesting, huh? So do you think that they sent an email, Jerome sent an email out that was like, you should start telling people what you think about the taper now in your interviews before Jackson Hole? So it kind of seems like that's what happened to me. That's my theory. Also secretly meeting in there, but there are like here's the thing that's funny is that there are secret volcano layers, right? Like one of the things that we don't talk about but is absolutely a thing is there is a central bank for central banks. And they have like regular meetings. So the Fed president and the Bank of England president and all of the major central banks around the world, these guys regularly have a meeting and they talk about, oh yeah, well, we're doing this in our central bank, and didn't think that worked very, like even talking about how you're managing the employees, and how do you do this job correctly, and they talk about it and coordinate with each other. And that's something that the first time I had read that, I was like, nobody's ever heard of that. I can't even remember the name of the organization that did it. Now I see why A stopped chatting, is the stuff ain't worth it. It's fine. Look, we'll talk about what we want. I think you are smarter in world politics and mass control than I am. I don't know if I'm an expert in mass control. Here's the thing. I feel like I understand US politics really well. And I follow US politics really well. But when I look at politics of other countries, I'm always just like, what? Okay, like in New Zealand, there was a new COVID case, so they shut the country down for 3 days. What? I can't even wrap my head around that. What the sentiment in New Zealand must be like, where that not only happens, but that all of the populace out on TikTok defends it. I just can't even. Yeah, international politics perplexes me sometimes. When it was the Brexit thing, like I thought I knew what was going on with Brexit, but like I lost money on that one. Not Brexit, but like when they became official or whatever it was. Just before the pandemic, like late 2019 or whatever. Yeah, I lost money off of that late 2019, even though I had the overall direction right. But it was like all of the little twists and turns in the interim. I didn't understand what was going on. I lost money. Should have just stayed out. We live in an era of democratic autocracies. Well, okay, so here's the thing. There's this thing going out. They did a study about what was the most indicative of what the actual policy would be in the United States. And they showed that what the public opinion was not as likely to happen as what the opinion of the elites were, right? And so they're saying, well, that's not the way that it's supposed to work, right? So it's interesting to think about the way that this sort of power thing works, because the reason that democracy in America seems to work is that the political power is in line with like the success of the country, right? So like there are some countries where the only reason that anybody in the country makes money is because there's oil there. So the only thing that really matters policy-wise is the things that happen to the oil company, because that's where all the wealth is. And in places like that, you tend to get dictatorships, because what the average person thinks doesn't matter, right? So then we say, well, is that happening in the United States? Because we're getting to the point where what the average person says doesn't matter, and so the financial interests of regular people are not being expressed, right? Well, but here's the problem, okay? Would you say, shouldn't what the public wants to happen be the thing that happens? Not always. Not always. Okay. If the public wanted to, what would be something that would be really dumb that the public would want to do? Okay. If the public wanted to ban all fossil fuels tomorrow, okay, that the government shouldn't do that, right? That would have very significant negative impacts on industries. So the fact that industries that have, that make a lot of money end up having a lot of power in Congress is actually a feature of American democracy. It's just a question of like, how do you balance it out and deal with it, right? Because you're continually running into these situations where we, the public, simply do not understand issues well enough to really be saying anything about it anymore. Like if there was a law about the financial industry, I would feel pretty confident about saying what that law should be. But I almost guarantee you that if I go on Reddit and I see what people are saying about it on Reddit, that they would be promoting the wrong thing. You know, and that has been over and over and over again. That's what I've seen, right? It's because these guys just don't understand the implications that it actually has to the broader financial industry. You know, they think that they're helping and they're not. Like this stupid Volcker rule. Well, okay, so all of the banks got rid of their prop trading desks. Now the banks don't have that experience. They don't have anybody there that actually really understands trading and trying to predict what the market's going to do and dealing with that risks. They don't. They just have execution people now. That's the problem. Right? So how do you balance that out? It's a difficult one. So I don't think that you can say that we're autocracies, but there certainly are some issues. One of the things, there was this, I saw this thing the other day. It was Noam Chomsky, actually, and he was saying, people want government to be smaller, but the problem is that smaller government doesn't eliminate the decision. It just moves the decision to a different layer. And in American democracy, it generally tends to push that decision to corporations. And I think he is probably right about that to some extent. Except for that the argument that I would make is not that the decision should be made by the federal government, but that too many decisions are being made at the federal government level that should be made at the state or city level, right? That's what I feel. I feel that the government closest to the people governs best. And that our federal governments are probably trying to do too much. Yeah, the founders were quite clear on the tyrannical nature of democracy and the need to avoid it in favor of a republic with the rule of law. Yeah, but does that really work anymore, though, Horse Mumbler? Like, when it was your senator was the only guy that really knew what was going on in Congress, and it was a 3 days journey to travel down to DC, and so he just lived there, you know, and just knew that issue. That's really different from literally everything that happens in Congress now is blasted out across the internet, and everybody seems to have an opinion on it. And when all of a sudden everybody has an opinion on every piece of legislation, does the representative democracy really still function effectively? I feel like that it has weakened our democracy to some extent. It's like the parties can't work together anymore. That there's certain policies that just aren't getting done, and I think that a lot of it is because the politicians are held to their feet to the hot fire because of the internet. They can't make the correct decisions anymore because that situation where what the correct decision is might not necessarily be what your constituents want. It used to be, well, you can make that decision, and the constituents just trust you that you know what the issue is and that you're making the right decision. And that's not the case anymore. Nobody believes you. Maybe the case of the dangers of democracy are even worth threatening today. Well, but the case that I'm making is a representative democracy doesn't seem to work as well with the internet. So now it's like, well, what do you do? Make everybody have to be experts on every bill and issue? Because that's like what it's turning into. Things not getting... Well, it was true that changes... There's always been the case that the Senate has kind of been slower and make sure that when a decision is made that it's really a good decision. But we're talking about a situation now where there are some serious issues here that need to be dealt with that we haven't dealt with for 20 years, like the budget in particular. Like, that's a problem. That was not a problem before. Like, the only time that I think that it's ever been like this was before the Civil War. I remember when 50 Cent said that. You guys told me that for the first time. I thought it was hilarious. 50 Cent doesn't want to be 5 cents. So the E-mini continues to move up. It's looking pretty good. Ace must not be on today, because he surely would have been long on that. But you know what? I think that like his kids were going to school this week, right? So he's probably sorting that out right now. Does not appear when I asterisk his name. What does that mean? It just means he's not here right now, right? Yeah. He's probably showing the kids off to the bus stop. So I'm wondering, it seems like I'm getting a little bit of... Yeah. Well, it seems like the 2 and 10... Well, no, the 30 and 10 are moving a little bit too. Oh no, it's only the 30. Okay, I see. Although it doesn't show it. I'll be happy when these move a little bit more accurately so that I can really see what this spread is doing. And I probably need to flip these around too. It's funny that these are backwards from these. Well, it doesn't matter. The easiest way to trade is to just hold the S&P index. Yeah, sure. just be long the E-mini with leverage. Yeah. Probably you would beat most day traders. Robert Gerke, in a new opinion piece, Chaffetz puts never Trumpers in his crosshairs, a move that could signal he has his sights set on leading never Trumper Mitt Romney. If Chaffetz ran against Mitt Romney and won, that would make me so happy. That would be such a great political fight. That'd be Chaffetz versus Romney. That's the Utah political race of the millennium, you never get a better race than that. I'd have to volunteer for that one. Whew. Trick is knowing when pickups happen. I think the thing that I find so interesting with a lot of technical analysis is that when you look at it, there's no actual edge in the way. So like they'll come in and they'll say this particular level, it matters whether or not they hold it or not. And if they hold it, then we're going to continue going up or whatever the theory is that they've got, right? But when you look at it, for instance, prices are martingales, which means that the best future expected price is the current price, right? So if you come in and you say, we're going to visit yesterday's point of control. Well, if yesterday's point of control was the most traded price yesterday, then at any time you would say, well, my expectation for price tomorrow should be what it is right now. Yeah, of course it comes back to it, right? Doesn't mean that there's anything special about the level. It's just like the random statistics of it is going to show that it's going to touch it like 80% of the time, right? And it's the same thing, like most of these strategies are really just taking advantage of the fact that the E-mini always moves up. And so they don't actually provide any edge once you factor in just the buy and holds. And where it kind of will fall apart is when you have a recession, right? That's when these guys that they only go long, they get destroyed and a lot of them just blow out. Option flow influences corresponding futures market a lot. Well, yes, but I would argue that the same reasons that the option flow is going to come in is going to be reasons why the future flow is going to come in, and that you can still make those kinds of predictions. It doesn't matter if the theory is there, everybody's doing it. It does. It 100% matters, because if everybody does it, then it removes it. I have to push back against this thing. I'm not saying maybe that's not what you're trying to say, but if there's anybody that's new here, if there's something that I can teach you that I've learned from the markets and that has an empirical basis or support for, it's a lot of people trading the same strategy as you is not a good thing. It is not a good thing. Everybody thinks, oh, well, then that just makes the thing happen. But the problem is that it's only going to go so far off of that. And if you're the last person to trade it, then you're the one that gets stuck when it goes too far and it comes back and you lose money, right? So you have to get in earlier and earlier and earlier. And you can take that signal earlier and earlier and earlier until it just doesn't exist anymore. So the net effect is people trading in inefficiency will remove the inefficiency. If it's a systemic inefficiency, like something that has to do with the way that the market functions or the way that the order book functions, then the inefficiency will still be there, but there will be people that will be making money off of it, but it will be competitive. So you might not be able to make money off of it just because you're, just like with the high frequency algos here, right? There's an edge in, providing liquidity here like this and being at the front of the queue, but only so many people can actually get that edge, and you have to be competitive with it, right? Well, when it's just like some price pattern that you think you see, yeah, everybody trading, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. Support and resistance lines. A lot of people think that might be where they're making their careers, but there's actually really nothing to it. And the reason that they're making money is because they're always buying, and the E-mini tends to move up, or because they're taking on a lot of risk. And they're trading risk, and they probably could trade something completely different and still make money. But there is nothing that I've been able to find to support the idea that trading support and resistance lines is effective. In fact, again, the support and resistance lines looks to me like another artifact from Price's are martingales. You're going to think that it works because the best future expected price is the current price. So it's going to seem like it works when really, when you game it out and you write a strategy that says equal risk reward, does this line hold in this situation, you're going to find that it's random. I would further argue that the number of people that make their careers, quote unquote, off of support and resistance, for every one of those people that are out there, there's probably 1,000 that tried trading support and resistance and failed. Right? Is just not an effective signal of future price movement. Oh, there's Ace. We were saying, where is he? Were you putting the kids on the bus? I told him, I'm like, he's just, it's the kids going to school. That's probably where he is. Otherwise, I think you would have been long on some of that. I'm not exactly sure where you would have been long from, but kind of changed my charts up here, so it's a little harder for me to see. There should be an IQ test to be able to serve an office and vote. The same is probably true for order. That's probably is true. But I think that one of the big problems with order flow, so I think that there's two problems with order flow, okay? The first problem with order flow is that people try and turn it into technical analysis. Like, it's just too tempting to come in and say, okay, well, this had interesting price action on the DOM last time we were there, so when we come back to it, it's going to be a critical point, and I want to see. No, don't work that way. And the other thing is that a lot of the edges that you know are actually going to be there. For instance, if you can get at the beginning of the queue, catching the edge, this sort of a thing. You know, you're, as a retail trader, you're probably not competitive on those edges, right? So that's kind of where you come in with problems in order flow. But you notice that I'm not saying just use order flow. And in fact, I'm pretty emphatically would state that if you think I can just come in, watch the DOM, and I'm going to learn some pattern, and I'm just going to trade that pattern, and that's how I'm going to make money, you're probably not going to make money. Okay. But what I am saying is that if you understand the inelastic theory of markets and that orders move price, and you look at models and do research that may have predictive value in predicting future orders, which often happens on very high time frames, and you manage risk appropriately, that you can have success with it. And in those kinds of situations, understanding the order flow helps tremendously, because it helps you see if you're actually getting the flows that are predicted. In addition to it helping you determine what prices you should be taking and stuff. Oh, what do you think of this? 3900X, good. Motherboard seems fine. Corsair. That doesn't seem... Oh, 500 gigabyte NVMe. How much memory did you get? And then a 1660 would be good. Yes. That sounds like a great PC. Probably maybe $1,200 for that, depending on how much you got the video card for. Have you tested a typical You mean like a Bollinger Band strat? So I've done a lot with Bollinger Bands. I was actually going to post a video about it, and I just kind of never got around to it. Well, what I found with a lot of strategies, Bollinger Bands. The issue is that if I only give you like a 1 or 2 year time period, I could probably take just about any technical analysis indicator and somehow work out a way that would make the backtest come out profitable, like just by curve fitting it. You know what I mean? So Bollinger Bands are really interesting. I think that they have some use, but they're also like, with the way that retail traders use them and everything else, like there's like severe flaws and doing it like that. So for instance, trying to say, price has come up above the Bollinger Band, so it should revert back to the mean. It's silly, because the market doesn't care how far away it is from the mean. What it does is it there's a certain range, and it's like here's the current price, and then here's a certain range that it's going to go through, and then if it moves up, then here's the other certain range. And so of course it could deviate really far in the end, and all of those outlier moves kind of all add together and will push you far beyond the Bollinger Bands. You know what I mean? So the overall like premise with Bollinger Bands are kind of flawed. But then also, like, particularly if you go on a high time frame, this idea that a diverting from the mean is like something that's not supposed to happen is actually really quite silly, because if we are above like one standard deviation above the mean, that just means that like everybody's in agreement, right? So it doesn't even mean what people think it means. But I'm sure that there are people who trade like the thing is if you trade a Bollinger Band and you only buy dips and you have a really wide stop, probably could come out profitable. Yeah, at least on a short time period, but probably somewhere along the line you're going to have a period that really sucks. Did you complete the combine? So that robot, it filled the combine. It did really well through the first half, but then after that volatility came, the next week just every trade that it took was a disaster. So it would have been nice to have run it a little bit longer, but like it was the end of the month, and that's when we stopped, was when it was the end of the month. That's what's like, because I don't think that it actually like hit the drawdown limit. Like we could have kept going, we just hit the time limit for it essentially. It was just the thing is when I did that, I was I thought maybe 50% chance that it might pass. Like it was really kind of a I know enough about the strategy to say that it's not always going to work. And in particular, part of what developed this strategy was going for things that don't backtest well, right? Like the more difficult it is to backtest, the less likely that anybody else has come out and backtested it and already arbitraged it out of the market. Using price? No, it did not use price. It did not use, well, actually there was a moving average in it. There was a whole moving average on it. Just because when I was doing the tests, it suggested that helped. But mostly it was like I just had too many trades and I needed to filter some of them out. Inflation protected treasuries charge higher to lead U.S. bond market, says the Financial Times. Oh, that's interesting. Today's move hasn't been quite the same as they've been in the past, but it is moving higher. it hasn't been, at least as of yet, it's not giving me this kind of signal that we're gonna have this huge whoosh. But two U.S. senators are urging the Federal Trade Commission to launch an investigation into whether Tesla uses deceptive marketing practices by labeling its driver assistance systems as autopilot and full self-driving, reports Bloomberg Business. Well, that's not good for them. I'm watching this 07 here. Is it going to pull? I would think it would not, but let's see. Did. And only 751. And they all tick down at the same time. Time to sell again in ZV? Well, we'll see. So there's a pretty big order there at 04.5 trying to hold it up still. And I'm just not seeing anything that screams to me that it really wants to move. I think that it's just kind of meandering around here still. Ed Morrissey tweets against a story that says Taliban opened fire on Jalalabad protesters despite strongly worded memo from the UN. And Ed Morrissey says, guys, it may be early still, but I suspect the Taliban aren't as concerned about their international standing as the Biden administration thinks. Okay. We have expressed in no uncertain terms here at the United Nations through a very strongly worded press statement that the Security Council that we expect the Taliban to respect human rights, including the rights of women and girls. There you go. I'm sure that strongly worded press statement will change what they do. Taliban. You guys haven't been as interested in talking about the Afghanistan thing as I thought you would be. Maybe I'm not as interested in talking about it as I thought I would be. It's just sad. Well, where are we in relation to some of the key levels of yesterday? Okay, so we're above yesterday's closing high area, and kind of the area before the open at the beginning of, was it 9:45? Around the open was around 51 or so. So let's say the high was 53. Let's watch for that. Position in Afghan, all those lives lost. I think it's just really frustrating because I don't think that any of it was necessary. Like, there's only 2,500 troops there, so like, why was it so necessary to pull them out? Like no American soldier has lost their life in Afghanistan for years. It really was. Joe Biden wanted them to be gone because he's wanted them gone since the beginning, and nothing was going to convince him otherwise, and that's what happened. So I was reading this story. It was actually really interesting. I think it gave some insight into how these sorts of things go in the military that I thought was really interesting. So they were saying that if the administration or whoever asked you to do something that you thought was a really, really bad idea, that basically what you did is yelled really, really loud, "Yes, sir. Yep, we're totally doing all of this stuff," and then not actually do anything. And then what would generally tend to happen is just before the deadline or whatever the deal was, the military, generals would convince the administration that it was a bad idea and it wouldn't actually happen, right? And so they think that that's what happened this time. Was they said, well, we're going to pull out from Afghanistan, and they knew that that was a dumb idea, so they just didn't do anything. And then when it actually happened, they weren't prepared, right? And so that's why nobody in the military planned for it, because they thought that they were going to convince Biden at the last second about how dumb of an idea it was. And it does appear very much so that the military and the intelligence and everybody told Biden that this was going to happen and that he did it anyways. I wonder what a Gore presidency would have done. I don't know, because the other thing that I've learned through all of this and reading about it is that Joe Biden has had an axe to grind on this Afghanistan thing for a long, long time. So, like, trying to blame it on Donald Trump is actually, the more you learn about it, the more ridiculous it becomes, because Donald Trump had a certain plan. They threw away his plan. Part of his plan was, if they start taking over things like they were doing in May, then the whole deal was off. And Biden didn't do that. So supposedly, the people that were involved, I guess, I don't know who it is that's saying this, because I'm just reading the media reports, but I would guess that it would be the Donald Trump people were basically saying, well, they didn't do what we would have done. If we had pushed it back to September and then the Taliban started taking over areas like they had been, then we would have thrown it in the fire, thrown the agreement in the fire and pushed back. It's called pass the buck policies. You don't know. Like the thing is, so think about like the worst foreign policy disasters in modern U.S. history. Okay, Iran-Contra, Bay of Pigs, fall of Saigon, and this. And in my book so far, I actually really believe that this one may be the worst of all of those. Right? But when those happened, how did those presidents deal with them? Because the Bay of Pigs and the Iran-Contra affair were both happened during presidents that are historically considered pretty popular and successful, right? JFK with the Bay of Pigs and Ronald Reagan with Iran-Contra. And then the fall of Saigon was during Jimmy Carter, who was generally considered to be a complete failure. But in all three of those cases, when you look at how the president dealt with those cases, they basically said, okay, we made a mistake. We own up to it. It was a mistake. Like with the Iran-Contra, like Reagan fired people and tried to cooperate with investigations into it and everything, or at least supposedly he cooperated with it. I wouldn't be surprised if the West moved back in. No, I don't think so. So what is happening in Afghanistan is now that the United States is leaving, China is coming in. So I think that if the United States tried to move back into Afghanistan, that China would probably have something to say about it. Because they're coming in and saying, hey, this Belt and Road Initiative, that's what they're doing. China and Russia would probably have something to say about it. JFK blamed the CIA, but I think he still said like we did something, and I don't know. I don't think that he tried to pass the buck quite like Joe Biden is. Like, the thing that's crazy to me is that in his speech was basically like, well, it's the Afghanis' fault. They didn't actually want to fight. When everybody on the ground there is saying, well, they couldn't fight because you pulled out all of the logistics structure. One of the funny things that I saw on TikTok was there was a picture of Taliban driving around in an American Humvee. And all of the military guys were saying, boy, they're sure going to be surprised when that Humvee stops working in 2 weeks and they find out what military grade actually means. And I know enough about it to know that it's funny, because military grade does not necessarily mean it's top of the line. Like, that stuff requires a lot of maintenance, and they're not going to be able to maintain it. Like, there's all of these helicopters that they've taken. Yeah, there's no helicopters require so. I have a friend that is a helicopter pilot. Those helicopters require so much maintenance to keep going. Like, I think if I became a millionaire, it would be fun to have a helicopter, but I think that the maintenance of the helicopter would make it not worth it. It's not Afghanis, but Afghans. Yes, you're right. The Afghani is the name of the currency, right? Don't forget, Afghan produces opium. It'd be interesting to see if they produce opium or not. A lot of people were saying, oh, that'll help China too on their... But, well, you don't need opium to create opiates, right? So, do it with chemicals now. Oh, Walter Bloomberg tweets, Twitter is down 9 consecutive days, on track for the longest losing streak since May. Good. I don't like them. I would appreciate it if the trader community were to move to a different platform than Twitter. Honestly, but I would probably tweet a lot more often. What is this? I think you're correct, and I just did not realize how old my phone is. I would almost rather be on an old-fashioned phone mounted on the wall. Those cords were easier on the... Rare earth minerals lost to our national competitors. They have rare earths. I think they were saying that there's like something like $2 trillion worth of minerals in Afghanistan or something, and they're giving it to the Chinese. Yeah. Like, I find the Chinese trying to step into the power vacuum there to be a little concerning. I mean, of course, the Taliban probably not going to do everything that the Chinese want either, but still, the way that China has been behaving, I find very concerning. Feel like the Taliban is probably allied with the Persians, and don't forget. Well, yeah, that's the Chinese and the Russians are the ones that seem to be stepping in, for sure. How much of an influence they'll actually have in the country remains to be seen. But like, the Chinese and the Russians have embassies there and everything. I'm gonna put a limit order there just so that that's a nice equal 100. I'm probably gonna cancel it. I don't know. I guess it depends on how long this takes, because I don't want to hold a position past when I'm done streaming at 9. I don't know. Maybe the Taliban has reformed its ways. They have decided that they're, allying ourselves with guys like Al Qaeda and stuff is bad, and we just want to have a country and everything, and maybe it turns out okay in Afghanistan now that we're gone. because I mean, I think when Trump was doing all of this, I kind of seemed to me like it was almost assumed that the Taliban would take over, right? As kind of more the way that it happened that I think people have a problem with, more so than the Taliban taking the country over, right? China and Russia won't let the Taliban. Well, but what will they do? Pull financials? I guess you give them money. You give them money, I guess. Because I really have no clue. You see that the Treasury's getting smacked down there. Huge order got stacked at 05. And a couple of guys panicking and just marketing out at the 28 and a tenth. Okay, so can we talk about this? Because I have an issue with how we're supposed to list out interest rates. It's a 1.281. But for me to say it's not 281, that would be incorrect. I could say 281. Or I could say like 2/10, 800ths, and 1/1000th. Like, or no, what we should say is 28 and 1/10 of a basis point. Or we could say 28.1 basis points or something like that. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think is the correct terminology here? If we were on the floor of the CME, what would they be saying? What would they be calling the prices out as? That's what I want to know. $127.2 basis points. $127.2 basis points. Which I 100% like the 10-year the best. The 10-year is Bay. Totally. Have you seen? You haven't seen this video. Okay, on my channel, one of the earlier videos that I made was which futures trading product is right for you. I should probably go and rename that thing. Video. Like, what should you trade or something like that. Where I talk about the differences between the 5-year, the 30-year, and the 10-year. But in that video, I described the 30-year as like a redhead. I mean, I like redheads. I really do. Every redhead that I dated a lot of redheads for some reason, more than could be explained by just randomly in the population. And I always really liked them. And the top ones were redheads. But it never worked out. It was just a little bit too crazy, you know? Whereas the 10-year is just that reliable brunette. There's nothing... You know, at first you kind of, you expect those butterflies and something exciting about it. Oh, me and this instrument, like, this is definitely the place, you know, this is where I belong, sort of a thing. And you don't get that, right? With the 10-year. It's just like, just old reliable 10-year. But then as you go along, you realize, hey, you know, all of those butterflies in your stomach, that's not good. Like, that's anxiety. You're feeling anxiety. You don't actually want to feel anxiety when in your relationships. You want somebody that you just feel safely and comfortably attached to. That's the 10-year, my friends. In what way are brunettes reliable? I just say it that way because, you know, like, the brunette is kind of like the off hair color, right? Like, there are opinions about redheads and there are opinions about blondes. Nobody ever really talks about girls with black hair, but the brunette is kind of like the neutral one, right? So I think that in some people's minds, brown hair, just like in some people's minds, the 10-year is kind of boring and uninteresting. But in reality, there are a lot of things about it that maybe make it a better match for you. It's probably too well suited to me and my life experience, because I had a lot of, getting really attached to a girl and then it not working out. Because they had like attachment issues and they couldn't, they get flighty. Blondes are the best thing. You should trade the 5-year. The 5-year is the blonde. The blonde. Or the equity indexes. The equity indexes are like those the Mean Girls. Like the movie Mean Girls. That's the equity indexes. They're all popular. They care about all of the trends and stuff. But a lot of the time it's just more drama than it's worth. That's the equity indexes. Blondes seem to understand you the most, though. That's interesting. No. Don't say that to Pete. Don't. You give somebody new the wrong impression, Ace. What do we say? It's okay to call out trades, just as long as you're not doing it in a way that seems to be trying to encourage or coerce people into following you. That's all. Just like I don't make videos. Yeah, you can get that in writing. You can. Calling out trades is good. Just don't do it in a way where you are encouraging or coercing people to follow you. That's where the line is. Define encouraging. Being like, I'm taking this trade, you should take it too. Like you both saying, oh, I'm thinking about taking a trade. Oh, I'm thinking about taking a trade too. Here's where I'm looking at doing it. Okay, that sounds okay. Let's do it there. Like, that's okay. Okay, but when it's like, I'm a new guy, I know absolutely nothing that I'm doing. Well, you know what you should do? You should take all of the same trades that I do, because then you'll be a successful trader. That's where I think that you start to get into, not that it would ever matter for us, but I don't think that, I think that there's legal consequences. So somebody could come back and they could say, well, I took this trade because you encouraged me to take it and it was bad. Right? Why would someone copy another? Because that's what people are prone to do, apparently. You think if I just came on to this YouTube and I just said, hey guys, I'm the greatest trader ever, you should just do everything exactly I do. Look here, I'm going to click in it. Now all you guys should follow me. Like, it would be so different. I'm sure that there would be a lot more engagement on the channel. Because I watch YouTube channels where that's basically what they do, and they're really successful. Because people want to follow. The way that people work is, okay, let me look around and see who else is doing this thing and having success with it. Okay, let me do things the way that the guy that's having success is. That's the way humans think. And it's just not very effective in markets, because then everybody's doing the same thing and the edge disappears. So you really, what you should be thinking is, okay, who has a good process? Right? Who has a good process? How do they go about finding their edge? That's why I made all those videos. It was like, here's how you backtest it, and here's how you manage it, right? So I'm not giving you the signal. I'm teaching you how to find your own signal, and that's what you should really be watching, right? Or like if you're watching Ace, how does he manage his risk? What is the process that he goes through? That's what I really want to know more about. Is like, okay, I'm only taking the 2 points and I got out here because it's been too long, or this isn't an active enough. You know what? That's the sorts of things that I would be more interested in. When I was starting out, I would have loved to have had somebody trust more. Yeah, I'm sure that almost everybody when they're starting out would love to have somebody to tell them just exactly what to do. But I'm telling you, that would probably have been the worst thing for you. Really think about it, Ace. What if, when you were just starting out, you didn't know how to trade, and you came in here, and so you just followed me instead? Then you wouldn't be trading the trade that you trade today. And it would have been it would have essentially, Ace as a person, as he is today, it would have murdered him. He wouldn't exist. You see? People should find their own trades. You should see the coercive texts Ace Trades sends me. Why aren't you trading? Why aren't you going long? You need to go long here. I see people do that. You know what the craziest, if I follow you, would have probably I have to say, like, the thing that's I find interesting about my own trading is that when I'm trading well, it's like godlike, amazing trades. And then when I'm trading poorly, it's so dismal. It really is. It really does go back and forth. Now, I think that what we've been able to do is we've been able to reduce those dismal times and make them smaller, but it's a constant struggle. That's why I don't like to tell people, like, somebody is profitable or not. Even if I was making $1 million a year from doing this, I wouldn't tell people, oh, I'm a profitable trader. I would tell people trading is really, really hard. Sometimes you make money, sometimes you lose money. But what's the point in futures? Well, I think that the advantage in futures is that you can see more data, you have more liquidity to work with, and they are more responsive to short-term move shifts and order flows. So there's a greater probability of you as a retail trader being able to work out an edge in there. If they didn't have the watch trading rules, I would 100% be all in on let's find a couple of stocks that we know are good. Like I would find like a number of thick stocks, and then which sectors we expect to do the best today, and then scalp that. Yes, Massa. No, on the coercion thing though, one of the craziest things that I have seen is was a guru. They had a Discord, and people he wants the people to post their trades, and they were posting trades, but they were failed trades, and so he told them to stop, to delete them. So he was like getting mad. You had to post trades, but you could only post profitable ones. Can you believe that? So that everybody else in the chat got the impression that everybody was winning. So manipulative. I like the laid back approach. Give people the impression you're just. I think so too. I mean, that's my intention. If I catch a trade that's like really, I guess here on the stream I don't do that, but like on TikTok, I show somebody that I take a trade and they're like, wow, how'd you get so good? And I'd just be like, I'm just lucky, I guess. Seth just lucky, I guess. Yikes, that's sleazy. I know, right? I don't know what to do about instances like that. So there's so many scammers and stuff out there that like there's more than, like this is a one story that I think if CoffeeZilla went and made a video about this guy, I think that it would be a great video. So there's so much drama that you could go into. But like CoffeeZilla has like hundreds of gurus that he could go after, and probably one's bigger than him, So what are you going to do? It's unfortunate. And the thing that sucks about it is that like it affects everybody else. Like on TikTok, I can still talk about markets on TikTok, but I can't sell like financial services. So like I can go on TikTok and I can say, here's how I look at the DOM. Here are some of the fundamentals that I'm seeing in the market and things that are, that sort of a thing. But if I turn around and I say, Financial Juice is a great news squawk, and I totally endorse it, and here's an affiliate link, then you can't do that on TikTok anymore. All because of all these grifters. So frustrating. I was poking fun at you, Seth, the way we bend over backwards to avoid saying I made a good trade. Yeah. Well, so here's one I want to change, Ace. Like I was saying, I think when you take a trade, just for the sake of our argument, just stick with me for a second. The entry is random. Okay. Let's just assume for a second that the entry is truly random. Okay. If you are making money from it and the entry is random, then how are you making money from it, right? It's how you manage the trade. So what I would be more interested in is hearing how you managed the trade, and then saying that it was a good trade or a bad trade would be based on how effectively you managed the trade according to your strategy, right? Because to say like you took a random entry and that one worked or not, I say that may just be random, right? That you didn't actually do anything, right? But I'm more interested in hearing the things that you did. So if you came in and you said, okay, it went to my target and it was a really quick one and I executed it really well, and then we could say, yes, good. That was a good trade, right? Because that's the thing that we should really be thinking about is like, did we execute it effectively, right? I'm not here to satisfy your curiosity. Oh, okay. Well, that's what I would prefer to see. That's the way that I would like to look at it, because I don't like coming in and saying, well, it was lucky or whatever. It's just like, I don't have enough information when you say things to really know if it was a good trade or not. You know what I mean? Some headphone recommendations? Oh man, how much money do you want to spend on headphones? So I can give you headphone recommendations, let me tell you. You know what has been a new hobby of mine is there are certain products that are pretty niche, but are actually really good products. And they just never take off. And so a lot of that stock like gets sold to eBay and stuff like that. And then you can get it on eBay really, really cheap. Like these headphones, I think I spent like $60 on them. And when they were new, it was like $300. I never spent as much as $20 for a pair. So if I was going to go for $20, I would get the Plantronics. Like these are Plantronic headphones. They have a nice, soft, cushy, completely covers the ear. This cord right here comes out, and you can switch it between one with a microphone and one with an inline microphone that's more for like your phone. And I think normally these are $30 to $40, but every 6 months or so, Newegg will have a sale and they'll go on sale for $20. And I absolutely love them for that. And I've had those for years. Like they're really durable. But I have to say I'm a huge fan of the Pioneer headphones. These Pioneer DJ. And these ones were intended for producing, and they've got really fat bass, which is really nice. Really nice fat bass. That's what's so nice about them. But then they're just built like a rock. They're really flexible. And this is like magnesium or whatever, so they're very difficult to break. I think one of these, maybe for this year for Christmas, I want to get the kids. I'll get the kids some Pioneer headphones here. Which ones? Oh, they've changed their website. Headband headphones. Oh, maybe you need to go to Pioneer DJ headphones. Yeah. I think it's just this one, the HDJQ one. There you go, $70. I think that's what I want to get them one of these days, because they ain't gonna break those, and I'm tired of replacing headphones. Kids go through headphones so quickly, man. It's so annoying. They should make headphones with bangs, headphones with dreadlocks. Oh yeah, now see, there's you go. Win. What you really, you know what's popular amongst the kids. Right? We got something on Amazon. Nah, I think we should get you like fuzzy cat ears. These ones you can actually change them out. Oh, these ones you just put it on any other headphones that you already have. Over-ear headphones hurt my head and ears. So the nice thing about those Sennheisers is that they sit off of your ear. These ones actually do too. They don't, a little bit, they touch the ear a little bit, but those ones, they don't touch your ear at all. Do they have ones with fuzzy ears? I would think that fuzzy ear cat ears would be better, but they're all plastic. But there you go. Cat ear headphones. That's what all the young girls are getting these days. I should get my wife some cat ears. And I can't, what would be the right cat ears for her is the question. She really, all of her shirts have flowers. She really likes flowers on her shirts. I don't think that bows and like cat bows, that's really her style. She's more flowery. Ooh, that treasury. Gonna dive down for another one? That 04 could go. Oh, there's an iceberg in the 5-year. Okay. Oh, okay. 1,000 offered now. Oh, look, I love how it gives us the best editorial recommendations. Best cat ears headbands for adults. You can get glitter cat ears. Oh, yeah, look at that. With sequins. Uh-huh. Glow in the dark cat ears. Wait. That is a thing. Glow in the dark cat ears. Oh, it is a thing. Kind of. Ooh, I think she would like that. Soft white furry ones? And do they light up? Light up soft white. Okay, this is what we want. This is what we want. Wait, do they have different sizes? No, I hope it's the right size. Or head. Let's read the review. We're gonna make sure it could be trash headphone. It could be trash cat ears. This item is in pink. On a separate list. Oh, they have other colors? Wait. Wearables. No, where's the cat ears? Hats? Cat ears with purple. Oh, okay. Now, do we get the fuzzy ones with? That's a lace. Here we go. Fuzzy, multicolor, pink. Okay, wait. Purple, fuzzy, glow in the dark cat ears. No, not glow in the dark. LED. LED cat ears. That maybe. Like if I can get them purple, I think she might actually wear them. A present sent out of the blue for no reason. Well, so now the next question is how do I get it through Amazon Prime without her noticing? Because I've always joked that she should get some cat ears, just because every time you go on TikTok, all I have are the freaking cat ears. Oh man. What if we just say purple cat ears? You could get the purple sequin ones. Oh, you know what? I am way over time. Okay, guys. I don't know what I'm going to name today's title, but I got to get going. I'll see you tomorrow. Stay profitable.